January 1929, and pilot's A license number 1979 later that year. In 1929, she became the first British woman to obtain a ground engineer's C license. She bought her second-hand de Havilland DH-60 Gypsy Moth Golf Alpha 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 Hotel, I think I've got the right number of alphas in there, and named it Jason after her father's business trademark. And it was Jason that she flew to Australia. In September 1934, Amy became the youngest president of the Women's Engineering Society. Inspirational. I'm delighted to welcome our guest speaker, Smriti Hamal, who will deliver a lecture on MRO through the ages and beyond, safeguarding legacy aircraft to AI wings. A talk that will explore the evolution of aviation maintenance, repair and overhaul, from preserving historic aircraft to addressing the demands of next generation AI-enabled air power. Very much look forward to that. Following the lecture, we will host a panel discussion, which will examine how evolving technologies such as digital transformation and AI in safety systems are reshaping our industry. The panel will also explore accessibility and inclusion being critical to designing the next generation of aircraft. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our event sponsor, Rolls-Royce, for their continued support in making this lecture possible. And finally, I would like to highlight the ALTA mentoring platform, one of our flagship initiatives. Mentoring has the power to change careers and lives, and through ALTA, we are proud to be connecting and supporting the next generation of aerospace professionals. At this point, it is my pleasure to introduce Christine Matthews, Chair of the Women in Aviation, Aerospace and Space Committee, who will say a few words before we begin the lecture. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Alistair, and thank you everyone for being here this evening, for making the effort to come out to London and to join us online for our flagship event, the Amy Johnson Lecture. I'm really proud to have had the honour to chair the Women in Aviation, Aerospace and Space Committee for nearly 3 years now. And I've also got a co-chair, Martine, who you'll see in a little bit. And I'd just like to, I haven't prepped them for this, but I'd just like the committee who are here today, if you could just stand up and make yourself known to everyone. So we've got Charlotte, Joe, Verity and Martine here today. So if you want to know anything more about our committee later on, please do find any of us and give us a shout. Let's see if I can have the next slide, please. And the one after that as well. So the committee was formed back in 2009 off the back of a report. So it's been going for a little while now, and we've still got a really key part to play in reducing the gender gap in our industry. And we've actually spent this afternoon thinking about how we can focus ourselves next year to do that. And one of the things that we do are the events like this, networking opportunities like this, which is on our 3 key themes on the next slide. We also look into targeted research and projects, and hopefully you'll be seeing quite a lot from us in terms of communications and outreach over the next year or so. You've heard a little bit already from Alistair about the ALTA mentoring platform, and Danny's going to come up and talk next a bit more about that. Again, a really powerful initiative that the committee is really proud to support. I'll skip on to my next slide, please, just to ask all of you ways that you can support us and support our cause in the industry. Please spread the word. So on socials tonight, post about this event, tag the Royal Aeronautical Society and use #WASC to spread the word that we hold these sort of events and that we're giving women in the industry a voice through our panels, having really inspirational speakers up here, those who are following in the footsteps of trailblazers like Amy. Feedback, tell us how we can help. Always spaces available normally on the committee if you would like to join. And there's ways that your company could support us as well. So please bear that in mind, either connecting us with internal networks, making a donation, or like Rolls-Royce have tonight, being an event sponsor or becoming an ALTA supporting partner. You guys are already here at our events in person, online, so I'll say again, spread the word. And hopefully the fact you're going to have a really amazing experience tonight, hear some really inspirational speakers, hopefully learn a lot, will encourage you to go and encourage more people to come to our future events. My bottom bullet there is about joining ALTA, but I will not talk any more about that. I'm going to let Danny come up and give us a little bit more about the ALTA mentoring platform. And I'll be back at the end of the lecture just to say a few closing thank yous and things. But again, thank you all for being here this evening.
Hello, good evening. I feel that I've done very well in getting you to spread the outer word already. So I'm Wing Commander Danny Nawalski. I'm a serving RAF officer. And next slide, please. And I'm also the Deputy Commandant of the RAF's TEDR Academy of Leadership. But part of my role in TEDR is I sit on the ALTA steering group. So ALTA is a woman-to-woman mentoring platform for women by women across the air, aviation and aerospace industry. It is born out of the recognised need to really drive women's empowerment and journey in the industry. It was set up now 6 years ago. Founding partners, you can see up there, Airbus, the Air Force, Little Blue Private Jets, the UWE, Bristol, Aeronautical Society, I'm sure I forgot one of them. But yeah, a brilliant collaboration where we recognise there was an absolute need for mentoring to drive promotion of women in the industry. And what's really good is we're now 6 years on, we have 800 members. It's fantastic. We are a free platform. You sign up as a mentor, or you go on and look for a mentor as a mentee. So you go on altamentoring.com, and there'll be a bit in a minute to scan. But you go on and register as a mentor. You have so much to give as a woman in the industry, as a role model for others. You put on there why you can help, how you can help. And it's anything from professional challenge through to the journey of returning to work or going part-time. And then as a mentee, you're hugely empowered to go on there, search for your mentor by various characteristics, various criteria, and you go, actually, do you know what? There's a list of 5 women. I'm going to reach out to them. One of them can help me. And that mentoring journey can be anything from a one-off phone call to just unpick a knotty issue through to an enduring relationship throughout your career. And it's so empowering. Next slide, please. And I'm going to say we've got some great supporting partners. These are just a selection of them, so apologies if I've not mentioned you up there. For a small donation a year as an industry, you can support ALTA, ranging, it's on your leaflet there, but £250 to £750 a year plus that. It's a demonstrable call to action to support ALTA, to get out there and go, actually, no, I'm really supporting women in the industry. And by joining ALTA as an industry or as an individual, you get a whole host of things. We are European Mentoring and Coaching Council affiliated members now, so we're pretty credible at what we do. We're also supported by the ESRC, the European Social Research Council, and they've given us some money for academic research. So we're really underpinned as well by a lot of academic research. Our chair is a professor of women's studies, so absolutely a credible cause. So yeah, you get EMCC membership and everything that comes with it. You get that demonstrable call to action in the mentoring space. But what you get as a mentor or as a mentee is really not only that sense of achievement, that social value that you bring to your organisation, to you as an individual, those pro-social behaviours that we all look for in values-driven organisations these days, but you get access to events, you get access to training modules. We do podcasts, we do all sorts of things, but there's a whole host out there of ALTA products that are really there for women to get your teeth stuck into and just really take control of your journey. So last slide, please, is really quick. There is a QR code on the table on all the little flyers to sign up to it. You can sign up immediately, register. It's free, and that's the other great thing about ALTA, or indeed just our website for our training modules and to find out a little bit more about who we are and what we do. And Vivaldo will kill me if I don't say sign up to our socials. They're on the contact card as well. If not, you'll find the link to them, altamentoring.com online. And I'm around for the rest of the day if anybody wants to pick my brains about mentoring, because I'm pretty passionate about it. And I, without a doubt, would still be serving the RAF after 26 horrifically long years if it wasn't for a mentor. I think I cannot advocate it enough as a take control of your own personal journey. Thank you.
So thank you, Danny. It's absolutely fitting and a pleasure tonight to be introducing Smriti Hamal, our keynote speaker for this evening. Smriti herself has been an ALTA mentee, and in her own words, she wouldn't be here tonight if it weren't for ALTA. So sorry to be repeating your own words back to you, but therein the power of successful mentoring. Smriti is a senior air safety consultant at AtkinsRéalis. She has over 8 years of experience in the domain across defense and civil aviation MRO. She specializes in safety assessments, safety management systems, and digital tools to improve airworthiness and reporting. And she holds a bachelor's of engineering, communications engineering and electronics, a whole series of credits here in EASA, Part 66 B2 license, and also an MSc from Cranfield University. She's a chartered engineer, and she's led some notable projects, including modifications to the Falkland Islands Islander fleet. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Smriti. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to hearing you.
Thank you, Christine, for the wonderful introduction. Good evening, everyone. It's truly an honor and privilege to stand before you today and share the journey that has brought me this far. Today's title is Maintenance Repair Organization Through the Ages and Beyond, Safeguarding Legacy Aircraft Through to AI Wings. I chose this topic because it reflects the essence of my own journey, breaking into aviation through the world of MRO while maintaining and sustaining the legacy aircraft and looking ahead to the future SPY next-gen aircraft, the future powered by innovation and AI-driven wings. So on the left is me in the Waco, probably 1920s built aircraft, and on the right, it's the photograph taken 8 years ago during my volunteer days with Royal Aero Society, and it's just showing that contrast really. I extend my heartfelt thanks to Royal Aero Society to provide this for providing this platform. I'd also like to thank Rolls-Royce for sponsoring tonight's lecture event. It just highlights that their support for professional development, education, and thought leadership within aerospace community. And a special thank you to Yvonne, who's my friend and mentor, and through ALTA mentoring, we connected, and her belief in me brought me forward to this stage. And I'd like to thank the audience and panelists who took their time out today to support this lecture. And for those who are considering their career in aviation or aircraft maintenance, I hope this session inspires you and informs your path. And to my experienced colleague in the room, I trust you'll find insight here and spark reflection, perhaps. Right, so the format for today's lecture is briefly talking about Amy Johnson and drawing out her drawing out some parallels with my own journey, and then I'll share how I entered into maintenance, focusing in the continuing airworthiness aspects within the civil platform. And then I'll be discussing about my transition to current role, managing type airworthiness, and then talking about more what digital transformation is playing a role in terms of enhancing safety and operational efficiency, and then a bit more on the future scope side of things and the challenges what the female workforce is facing and how can we overcome. So I'd like to take a moment to honor one of the most iconic pioneer, Amy Johnson. In 1929, Amy Johnson broke barriers by becoming the first women in United Kingdom to earn a ground engineer's license, defying gender stereotype and paving the way for future generation female engineers and aviators. The parallel I can draw out from this one was that I was the first aircraft engineer in my family, first female to get the license in Nepal, and to do so I left my country in pursuit of this dream. So the first one in my family to travel abroad. So between 1930s and 1936, she claimed record-breaking flights. Her determination to push boundaries resonates deeply with my own journey. I decided to pursue my career in aviation, left my home country and stepped into entirely different culture alone, without any safety net. There were moments of culture shock and self-doubt, but like Amy, I often reminded myself why I started this journey in the first place. And I think that sense of purpose kept me moving forward, just as it did for Amy when she was doing all her solo flights. Sorry, I just moved. Yeah, so this is the iconic cockpit which Amy Johnson flew while she set a record-breaking flight from England to Australia. And the reflection I can bring from this cockpit is some of the modification that I've carried out in historic aircraft with wooden frames and fabric wings, very old dial. And you can see back then the avionics was no radio, no air traffic controller, very basic navigation, but with paper map and just the airspeed indicator and the altimeter to show the altitude. Very, very basic configuration, really. And to the evolution of avionics that we see nowadays, capability of connecting to your iPad to push the flight path to your map page and reducing that workload for the pilots, while some of the apps like Garmin Connect app, which is capable of showing real-time weather information, phone calls, that are the example of avionics today, which Amy could only dream in her time. So during World War II, Amy Johnson served as senior pilot and joined ATF ferrying aircraft from factories to RAF bases. The strong parallel between Amy Johnson's adaptability during the war and my own path, that she transitioned from being a celebrated record-breaking pilot to taking that demanding role under challenging condition. Similarly, my journey evolved as I moved to a new country, adapting to different culture and stepping into the roles that required flexibility and continuous learning. So coming from Nepal, this picture truly speaks for me, a place of natural beauty, but very limited opportunities, especially for women in aviation. The opportunity for female aircraft engineers is scarce, no role model, and no clear career guidance. While I was doing my undergrads in electronics and communication, I chose avionics as an elective subject, which sparked an interest towards aircraft system, flight physics, and aircraft operations. So this is the first time I ever broke into MRO industry. Despite there's no opportunity in design and manufacturing roles back home, I pursued an internship with Nepal Airlines. At the time, they maintained Boeing 757 and Twin Otter, exposed me to that maintenance environment. And to my surprise, there were no females at that time, and often I did encounter gender bias, which was quite shocking for me because I wasn't familiar with that sort of setup anyway. But despite that bias being there, it didn't stop me to look for my next move to come to UK and pursue my aircraft engineering license. So this was the first photograph taken while I was studying my Part 66 course here in UK. So the route to license is the requirement that you fulfill by either following the EASA or the CAA setup. At this point of time, because of the Brexit, obviously you'd have to go into their respective website to find out what that step is. But at the time, it was still the EASA Part 66. So the course setup was like 12 modules that you had to pass, along with the practical side of thing, and score 75%. But as you can see in the photograph, very, very few female, and all of them were international students back then. So I would often wonder why, why so less women even here. So part of the license side, I had to carry out on-job training, and the first part was I was exposed to this aircraft, King Air back then, which was going major modification. The photograph was like a heap of wire in the cockpit space. I couldn't find that photograph, but anyway, so I was sort of finding out in my own head that it was a very raw photograph of the aircraft, and how would I tame all those wire to then give that perfection to have that avionics panel in place. So that was sort of challenge at the time that was running in my head. So this is the maintenance logbook where I kept record of all of the tasks that I carried out, and which would then prove as a evidence of my experience. Worked in various platform, and then to be submitted to the regulators for the license application. I joined RGV back in 2012. That was my first exposure as proper job aircraft engineer in the avionics space. This was very early days of my career, a typical hangar environment, and with my male colleagues, surrounded by lots of machines with complicated avionics in it. Every day brought new challenge, and over time I realized that that early experience laid a foundation for everything I do today: precision, adaptability, and continuous learning. This picture was taken when I carried some of the major modification, and on the left to show how that old dial avionics is converted to modern looking glass cockpit on your bottom right. Some of the steps that underwent through this process was huge and did require a lot of planning So earlier when I saw myself, aircraft covered in that big heap wire, and to sort of questioning in my head, like, how am I going to convert that heap of wire to something like, where you can see in the screen on the bottom right. So at this stage, I was able to do that myself. I sort of did some of those rigor steps, which involved like planning, understanding the maintenance manual, understanding the ways of working, and understanding the aircraft system itself, of what requires changing and what we are looking to achieve, and then how do we fulfill those steps, really. So it's quite good for myself to see from where I started to be able to then do some of these tasks myself, and that sense of achievement and the challenges obviously that came with this one, while trying to carry out some of these tasks related to obsolescence of the parts, or not having correct documentation for the older aircraft, and some of those challenges, really, and not necessarily that the old equipment were easily replaced by the new one because of the compatibility issue, and so on, really. So in spite of those challenges, still to sort of see that aircraft go through that transformation, and to be able to validate some of those functionalities through testing, a ground run, and in that process, again, collaborating with the male colleague, because obviously you would need them for doing some of the ground run process, and you'd have to sort of, make them allies as well. So it's just going through all that process, really, to achieve the end result. And it was just phenomenal that, I would often think like how I started and, what I can do now. And this license sort of proves that, I was able to file my application and get the license coverage, and was able to sign my own aircraft for my the work that I've done, and it was just unbelievable, how I started and how I ended up, really. And one of the key assignments that I carried out was I was deployed to Falkland to lead avionics upgrade. And it was my first time travel to Falkland. And again, now trying to take me out from my sort of, comfort zone or my environment to something else, somewhere else where I've never been before. And then trying to carry out the similar tasks that I've done in the hangar space to somewhere completely remote was a challenge, really. And then planning out, logistic wise and the technical wise was sort of quite a lot to plan myself. And it was quite intense at the time when I was given this task. I was in two minds. I want to do it because it seems like quite challenging, and I really want to take that challenge. At the same time, I wasn't sure, like, I've never been there before, and I don't know how would I be adapting in that sort of environment, really. And just to tell you, it was very cold winter, even though it was August, not as cold as here, but it was sort of snowing, and on the right you can see it was the photograph I took when I was carrying out the flight test of Stanley. So moving on to the actual autopilot installation. So this photograph was taken after I've completed the installation, and I was doing some ground test. And as you can see, I wasn't alone there. I had a company with me. So carrying out such task in place like Falkland seems that, I was going backward in time because there's very limited access of internet, phone, or any of those easy data that I can access in UK. Like, you know, I could just go in the internet or search or go to the document area, but it was sort of very going backward. But what it demonstrated was all the learnings that I've done here in the UK, I was still able to demonstrate that independently over there, showing that, you know, independent technical leadership, problem solving, and there were occasions where I wasn't sure about certain things, but, you know, I did find a way to make it work, and I think that problem solving was just tested right there at that point of time. And then sort of what it also strengthened was that system integration and sort of, you know, compliance side and the safety overall side of things. So I was a team player with the locals, and I think that all was reflected as part of that project. The flight test over there was a bit unusual because obviously, you know, with extreme weather condition, high gust of wind, and still had to test that aircraft up in the air. I sort of experienced that firsthand, unpredictable and intense turbulence. But the pilot was very calm, and I almost felt like why I was doing that job, you know, in the first place in a situation like that. But also what it proved was that system was tested correctly. The system was all working. And it wasn't just testing the aircraft, but also was testing, you know, my training, my adaptability, confidence in me, and the system that I helped install. And I was quite ahead of my schedule, so I took opportunity to go on round robin flight, you know, a local service connecting remote villages in Falkland. So I got that opportunity, and also some of the helicopter ride to go into remote places where I could see penguins. So the views were breathtaking, you know, rugged terrains and open skies. So it was not just about the autopilot install. So as part of continuous development, I pursued my aircraft engineering with Cranfield University, and it was more sort of deepening my knowledge, and the independent research project on avionics was learning more from the design aspect and the architecture. That shifted my mindset, not just from a system perspective, but from sort of understanding, you know, what's the driver for the design, and understanding more from testing and validating, and but from the design perspective, really. And the final part was the type training that I did on TBM aircraft, bit complex aircraft than what I was normally working on. And as part of that, I was unable to complete my application process because I discovered I was expecting a child. And then I found myself in a situation where, you know, I was sort of like having those transformation emotionally, and I had to take a pause for some time to understand what's the priority here. It's the professional ambition, or, you know, it's that family commitment. And then later, I was approached for an air safety role at Atkins. A bit hesitant at that time because of the situation I was in. But the phone conversation with them sort of led that turning point, which they waited for 9 months, and I took the role. But that was the transition for my role, which was from continuing airworthiness space to type airworthiness space. So a little bit on the type airworthiness side. So the type worthiness aspect of an aircraft is more of the entire life cycle. from very initial design development through production and operation to disposal under a robust safety management system. And in order to achieve some of the safety assurance aspect from the TA perspective, the system, basically type airworthiness authority, would follow a systematic approach to ensure that air system is designed in such a way that it remains safe to operate. And that safe to operate sort of element is sort of linked with the concept and the very assessment side of place, where you've got the design safety target set, which then drives the whole safety, the whole design aspect of the aircraft. And within the type airworthiness management space, you would then have the robust assurance mechanism in place to then declare that the aircraft is safe to operate in the environment where it operates safely. So a typical example, what a type airworthiness authority would sort of employ in doing so would be a claims argument evidence structure, really. So the principal claim being that aircraft is designed safely, and in order to meet that top claim, you would have a subclaim argument evidence. So the evidence would be basically supporting your argument to then meet that top claim. And some of the approaches that we have taken is that digital tool, which then enables to make that decision that your aircraft is safe. And that's where the digital transformation is sort of exploited a bit more in that sort of claims argument evidence format. And that could be like either employing some of the Power BI tools, or, it could be any other tools as we speak. So moving on, as we've seen the digital transformation side, so future scope would be basically how we can link all the life cycle, how can we link the whole process together, and everything is linked with the data, because as we see, even at the assurance phase, it's all heavily relied with that evidence piece, really, that how we use that evidence to make that assessment, and which ultimately sort of, fulfills that, that your aircraft is safe. So coming from that aspect, where we see, the common data pool and how that links the design part, the production part, the assurance part, and then the operation and the maintenance. So linking all of that evidence with the digital thread, and how does this evidence helps in making that informed decision, really. So that would be sort of very future focused, because at the moment, within that type airworthiness management space, it's only focused for one area. But long run, I think it's that data centralization and how that data could be used in various areas, really. And then once we've digitized all the aspect, all that digital thread connecting all that data, how then AI plays that role in terms of increasing that efficiency, making, helping, for example, TA for the informed decision, leveraging your sort of process, really optimizing the whole aspect, really. The other thing is understanding how this data can be exploited. So again, within type airworthiness space, it's exploited in Power BI or within app format. And again, that could be exploited within maintenance field, but in separate format. So I think understanding that data exploitation part would be very sort of key to move into that sort of digital AI-enabled space, really. And we have seen, you know, health monitoring, health usage monitoring area where all the census data are integrated in one area, and how we use those information in terms of, you know, maintenance world, that how some of those data are exploited. Again, real world example, I mean, the air data computer, if we see within the design space, again, we would want to see some of those analysis that we've carried out, how good that air data computer is, and then we can use AI model to see the performance of the air data computer and apply some of the redundancy strategies, you know, like what sort of redundancy we can implement. Same with within the assurance area, which I've already said, you know, using some of those safety analysis, the safety assessment side of thing, that then informs the air system safety case. And within the maintenance area, if we've got a flight profile which sort of influence the wear and tear of air data computer, perhaps in future, you know, AI would be able to predict some of those failure based on some of the trend analysis, you know, sensor fed data, and that side of thing, really. And I think what I'm trying to say here is that it's the core element over here is the data, and it's all about how we exploit it, how we use it, and, you know, but there are challenges to consider, like, you know, data ownership, privacy, and again, you know, if it's a military platform, then how we sort of enable that side of thing, really, and standardizes, and again, cybersecurity is again huge part, really. We've sort of, you know, we've got that data pool, but we've also got other issues. So there are areas that we need to think of. So we talked about a lot of, you know, transformation, digital transformation, a lot more sort of avionic evolution and all that side. But the current landscape for women establishing, you know, leadership and expertise in engineering and MRO is still significantly low. As you can see, those numbers don't tell lie. So how do we manage gender imbalance? What should we do? And how do we sort of create an environment where women's are not just a welcome, but how do we sort of empower them, retain them? And I think that's a big challenge. And coming to that challenge over here, you know, cultural and stereotypical barrier. You know, some of the questions like, you know, women should be a hostess, and I was expecting my avionics engineer to be, you know, things like that, really, unconscious bias, and what can we do really about it, you know? And the other one is limited flexibility. We've got very rigid work patterns, and how does that actually incorporate, you know, some of the women with commitments, like family commitments? How do we sort of see from that perspective? A lack of role model and mentorship, like I said, you know, even giving my own example, there's none, you know, in some of the industries like that, I've worked before, and lack of recognition as well. How much are we sort of giving that recognition to, you know, female engineers? And then workplace environment and inclusivity. What's that workplace look like? You know, how inclusive is it? What's the reporting mechanism if you, you know, see something that you want to report about? Who's there? What's the psychological space for you to have that conversation? And again, some of the PPE, I think you must have seen in one of the photograph where I was wearing shirt, really. So, you know, that had to be like designed and tailored for me. Not that that was readily available, you know. Coming to the challenges and how we overcome it. And like I've said, perhaps the early impression, STEM activities and engaging girls from very young age. If I would have got this knowledge at my early years, I guess the route that I've taken to come here wouldn't be the case. So early engagement is quite important. Role models at high level, like we always want to show example that this is, you know, this is how it's done and this is how it can be done. Temperature check, again, understanding what the environment is like, what's happening in my company, who's taking accountability, and do I know what's happening within the hangar, you know, and again, every people plays role. I think your colleague or your manager or, you know, people at higher level that, you know, how do we sort of come together really to create that inclusive environment, and how are we actually measuring it? How are we taking feedback? Like, is everything okay in my company? How do I know that? Again, some of those points really. And then Alta Mentoring and Royal Aero Society, again, is a real good example. And again, if Alta Mentoring wasn't here and if I wouldn't have connected to Yvonne, I wouldn't be here again, you know, talking about all these things. So I'd definitely say that there's credibility in that. So yeah, and then sort of coming to my final slide, is there any question or would want to leave that for the panel event? Yeah. Okay. Verity will be here to sort of welcome the panel.
Yes, with the recent advancements in AI, how have you seen you know, these advancements such as large language models being used in your field if they are used at all? Yeah.
So I couldn't hear the question, although I did hear the large language model, but I couldn't actually hear the whole part of the question.
Sorry, I was inquiring about if, like, how large language models are used in your field, if you're currently using them right now, and how they have benefited.
Well, again, there's the large language model. I mean, you can use it to extract, you know, the bigger documents to sort of meaningful piece of information, but because with the sort of restriction, we haven't been able to explore that far because a lot of the information are, you know, official sensitive, and you can't just be able to pick and drop to areas that you want to. So you need to see that AI platform that are compatible with the framework you're working with. So yeah.
Hi there, Tim Robertson, Aerospace Magazine. I come with the building. What sparked off your interest in aviation? Did you have it before you did that course? You were doing your electronics course and there was an avionics bit, or was it afterwards that you thought, hang on, this is what made you choose your avionics course, that module in the first place?
Well, when I had the opportunity to select the elective subject as part of my undergrad, I sort of went through all the options, and there were the other one was biomedical, and then the rest was like I wasn't very interested because avionics was something I researched, and I found that it linked with the aircraft, and I think that was the thing really, because it was related with aircraft, and I was like, I want to know more, you know, and it's just like, you know, when you go to candy shop and you'd be like, yeah, I want that. It's just like, for me, yes, aircraft, you know, and where would I use my electronics communication, you know, knowledge? And that was where I wanted to focus, although I did have second option as biomedical engineering, because we could choose two. And I did enjoy that biomedical engineering part as well, but I was still inclined for avionics because it was really fascinating. You know, aircraft was fascinating for me. Yeah.
Hello. My question is related to data storage. You said that the data centralization is important here. You need a lot of data. If you feed the correct data, the algorithm becomes more smarter. How are you going to filter the non-essential data from the essential ones in those servers, in the data storage? Also, if you're bringing more and more data, you need more and more data centers, cost, you need good quality of water to maintain it. Many things are required there.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to filter the non-essential data to make sure only the best data is available that makes the algorithm more smarter?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's for the future scope, really. So that's, I think, the unknown part. It's more, you know, with current trend and what's going and how things are working, and even with, like, let's say, small app area where in order to make that app work, obviously you need to sort of do that data storage and, you know, and that side of thing. But again, we're talking about that bigger picture, really, you know, that whole life cycle and how we can see things linking. But definitely design is one area, production, and then, you know, assurance, and you've got the maintenance operation. So it's like quite a lot of data. And then we're thinking to link that with the digital thread, you know. I would imagine that needs to come into sort of, you know, more of a rigor approach on that, which I have got no answer at this point of time. Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I have to admit, I find all of this incredibly interesting, especially the inspiration to come and not only sort of leave your home country, but choose to come and do that and pursue a course. From my perspective, so my background is in the AAM world. I've always been interested in aviation, but I found it really interesting to get a bit more of a deep dive into the MRO side of things. And just a little bit on the format of this. So I'll do an introduction where I'll ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, give a little bit of background. I'll start off with some questions, and then we'll move on to a bit of a Q&A from the audience. But just to start off, I think one of the things that always comes through and that I love about the aviation industry is I feel like the amount of people in the industry with a passion for it is incredibly high. So for me, it was, I used to sit with my great uncle who was a flight engineer for BA back in the 60s, and we would plane spot in Wales from his window. I'm genuinely not joking. Kathy, it sounds like you didn't really have a chance either. And, you know, it's interesting then as a woman coming into the aviation space where it's been so open. I think you mentioned, Smriti, is, you know, you then experience that bias that potentially you hadn't seen on a family front. And it makes me worry that those people aren't coming through. So for me, it was, you know, I did work experience at school, and, you know, it was fine in an aircraft manufacturer up in the Northeast. They were super lovely to me, but they also all called me princess. So, you know, it depends how you could get through that. But it would be great if you could all introduce yourselves, give a little bit of background on what you're doing, and then we'll start with the questions. We'll start, well, no, we won't start with you because I think you've given a good introduction. But,
yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Seifert. I'm a Royal Air Force Engineer Officer. I consider myself very fortunate that I've managed in my career to sort of stay in what I would refer to as hardcore airworthiness roles. And I've split my career almost 50-50 now between A400M and Chinook. So entry into service aircraft and probably a more legacy platform.
Hi, everyone. I'm Negin Asadi, and My background is aerospace. So what got me in this industry is I trained as a CCF, so it's a combined cadets force. I probably said it wrong. So I started to get into like the air side of things with RAF also when I first joined when I was 16. And then, but I took a different route. I took the university route, which I studied aerospace engineering, and then I joined Atkins, and I work aligned with Smriti. I'm a junior, I'm a junior air safety consultant, and I work on like the airworthiness side of things. So yeah, thank you.
Evening, everyone. Leah McDowell. I am also a graduate engineer from AtkinsRéalis, so I work with Smriti and Megan here. My background is aerospace engineering, which I completed last year at Swansea University. I got into engineering initially actually through a Women in Engineering conference held by the Royal Aeronautical Society back in 2013. So this is a really lovely full circle moment for me. And I hope to inspire future female engineers. It's my goal.
Hi, I'm Dawn Plant. I also work for Atkins, a senior air safety consultant. My background is Royal Air Force from leaving school and spending 30 years working in defence on both sides of the Royal Air Force and the Australian Air Force too.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So I think one of the great things about the panel this evening is we have a huge range of experience from 30 years to starting out as a graduate. One of the things that I did want to talk about was any sort of misconceptions in representation that we find within the industry. It would be great maybe if we start with you, Dawn, to say, you know, how have you seen that change throughout your career, and, you know, where did that start? Where are you now? And how have you found that?
Well, believe it or not, I was a little air cadet, and that got me excited about aviation. I also took metalwork at school as well, and I was just interested in the hands-on physical stuff, and then with the combination of being in the air cadets as well, that drove my interest into aircraft.
And have you found any sort of situations where, you know, you haven't found where there've been misconceptions that you have to go against? I remember you saying that some of the licenses when you first started, you weren't actually allowed to apply for instance.
Yes, when I was first applying for the Royal Air Force, the engineering trade scopes was very limited and very restricted. The amount of positions that were available for you to join into the RAF, yeah, it was a very difficult time to be a female in engineering. But I suppose it was my enthusiasm and sort of determination that is what I was interested in, and that is what I shall strive to be successful in.
And then just bringing us a little bit more into, you know, modern day RAF, Kathy, what do you find around that aspect of things?
I have to be very careful what I say now, because I can't be bringing the service into disrepute. I think that we are still seeing a lot of the attitudes that Dawn speaks about, but I also think people are a lot more comfortable calling it out. We go through generational changes, and that's not in a male-dominated environment. That is going to take time, but it's also not just about the men that we work with. Sometimes I've had very similar experiences to what Dawn was talking about with female colleagues of who joined at a time where it was very difficult to be a woman, and therefore assume that it must also be difficult for those of us that follow, rather than necessarily thinking about what barriers they had to overcome and smoothing the way for those of us who are coming later. this is a relatively old story, so I feel comfortable talking about it, where my training course, when I went through phase 2 training at RAF Cosford, so that's our engineer officer training course, was 50-50 male female, and that was the first time that had ever happened. So the media team thought it would be wonderful to take all of the female students and put us next to a Jaguar aircraft and get us on the steps next to it and take our picture, which obviously went all over social media, and you get lots of people who love to express their opinions on social media quite happily behind the safety of their keyboards. And actually, like in retrospect, it might have been a lot more, a much better picture if we'd had the entire course and had a 50-50 course of men and women, and not necessarily drawn attention to the fact of how many women were there. It would just been a good visual, as opposed to people misunderstanding and thinking that somehow we'd manufactured, I nearly said engineered then, that would have been a bit odd, manufactured an all-female course, or somehow we'd artificially created a 50-50 gender balance, because I absolutely had a female commissioned officer say to me, there's no way that's happened naturally. Some of you shouldn't be here. And so we still have attitudes like that to have to challenge. Oh, you know, we've deliberately created a 50-50 course. Some of you female applicants must have been picked over more qualified male applicants, naturally, because I'd applied at age 16 and worked quite hard to get to the point at age 22 where I was at Cosford, having got my commission and got my degree. I could point out all of the people who were dropped out along the way, and I could tell her exactly why. Actually, the female students that I'd come through that pipeline with had stuck it out when the men hadn't. But at 22, when you're first starting your career, you don't really want to be having those conversations with senior officers. Yeah. But I think those conversations are still happening, but I also see them being called out more and more. And I think the generation that are joining now have a much different opinion and expectation of how they should be treated, and are definitely more comfortable in calling out the behaviours that they're not comfortable with, regardless of the authority gradient. And I think that's a good challenge for us as leaders to work on. But it's actually really good to see that the sort of 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are joining across the industry now just aren't going to put up with nonsense like that. And we could all learn a bit from them.
I can confirm outside of the RAF.
No nonsense.
Yeah, no nonsense. Yeah.
And I think part of that as well, you say, you know, at 22, it's hard to push back on that. It can be even harder at a school age as well, right? Especially if those are coming across. I know, Megan, you were saying that you had an experience at school that, you know, may have put other people off, to be honest.
Yeah, so when it was literally my first day of college, right? And I selected to do electrical and electronics engineering. And I was looking for the room, right? And I was asking for directions, and I asked the teacher if this is the room. And they said, oh, I don't think this is the room that you're meant to be in. And then I was like, okay, but is this the electrical and electronics room? And they were like, yeah, but it's only like, you could look inside, there's no one like yourself in there. And then I was like, okay, that's nice. So when I was in this, like, when I did join, I did see the difference where I did like get treated differently, where it was like, oh, you're not able to do this, you're not able to do that. But really, we all have smartphones in this room, right? Do you really care if it's made by a female or a male? Like, as long as it works, that's all you care about, right? Like, you don't care about who it's made by, like what gender the creator is. You only care about if it works or not. And that's the comparison that I made to this lecturer, which he was like, oh, because I had to prove myself. Like, I had to really like show him that, you know what, like I really had to prove myself that I can do it. I had to work harder, I felt like, just to prove that I'm not just this feminine girly girl princess. I'm also like an engineer, a woman engineer, which in a way I don't want to be like called a woman engineer. I want to be called the engineer.
You know what I mean? And I think that, you know, just to add on to that, it's just trying to constantly proving the point that, you know, you can do it, but why is that requirement in the first place? Why can't you just do your job? But, you know, just trying to prove that, yes, I can do it. I think that's where, you know, my point is that why is that there in the first place.
Yes, can I add, sorry, one more thing. So I didn't add it in my introduction. So I used to be an aircraft maintenance engineer, where with that also, it came like with a lot of, let's just say it wasn't easy, where I was doubted that I could carry or do certain jobs on an aircraft. I used to work with helicopters, right? And because I have this like feminine certain look, and I was the only girl in the place, it was like I was always like tormented with words that you can't do it. Oh, I don't think you're able to do this job. I don't think you could do this and that. And then I used to I used to go out my way and do things that the others wouldn't do, if that makes sense. Like I used to like stay there for like 14 hours while everyone else went home, just to like get everything done, so I could like prove to them that, look, I can do the same job as you. I can even do it better. And I've called out people in that job where they've done things wrong and I was dismissed. Like, for example, I'm sorry, I'm taking up time. So like there's been times where they've messed up with certain jobs and I've confronted them and said that, no, that's not how we follow protocols. And because of that, I've got a comment saying that, what would you know? You're just a female. So it's like, and actually I was right. And yeah, in that case, I was right about the concern that I had about what they were doing wrong, which, yeah, they got the sack. But anyway, yeah.
So, Leah, give us hope. You know, as a graduate engineer, are you seeing anything different coming like straight into the industry?
I have good news. No, I am. I definitely am. I've had the pleasure and, as I'm realizing, the privilege of never being directly discriminated against. Not in the workplace, not during university, not from my lecturers. Of course, the boys would make jokes, but I would quickly, stop that, knock that off. It was more of a hazing ritual, I think. But yeah, no, I'm happy to report my course was, it was in double digits out of a course of 150. So we had double digit women. And I had the pleasure of working with many of them, and they were all fantastic, and they all took absolutely none of that nonsense. And I'm happy to report that, you know, I think there's been a massive push to introduce women into STEM. And I think I am a result of that, and I'm eternally grateful for it because I really enjoy what I do. I enjoy engineering. I love it. I love being able to problem solve. I think it really just tickles my brain, right? And I'm so happy I discovered it. And I think without initiatives like this, like mentoring, which I've already got it up on my phone, I will be looking into that. I think it really matters having that representation, but I think that is a pipeline issue. And I think that's something that is being addressed. But it's going to take some time to get there, because I think once you have women higher up, once you have women who are there to show the future generations that, yes, you do belong here, yes, you can be here, yes, you can do that, I think, yeah, it's continuously improving. So I can report, yes, it is getting better.
Wonderful. That's good news for everyone to hear, I think.
Just put some of that into perspective. So I think Leah and I established earlier on today that she is, she started her university career 7 years after I did. My MEng cohort was 6% female. 2 years later, the Royal Academy of Engineering did a campaign because across engineering in the UK, I think the statistic was 7%, and they had this campaign, 7% is not enough. So it's quite nice to hear that you were in at least double digits by the time you got to university.
Yeah, I think my master's course was over 10% women. So
yeah. So then, you know, we're starting to get people into the industry. We're getting excited about it. I guess the next question for me, which comes back to your presentation, is how are we keeping them in it? Because it sounds like sometimes, you know, roles can maybe not be quite fit for purpose. We're managing to get people in, but the bigger challenge sometimes is keeping women in the industry. You know, I'll start with you again, Dawn. You know, what's kept you in for so long, apart from the passion? You can add the passion.
That is, I suppose, stick a rock, you cut me in half, and yeah, engineering all the way through. Yeah, it's all I've ever wanted to do. I still enjoy being involved, especially as my specialist subject now is aviation safety. So I'm doing similar work as Smitty. I've been on a couple of projects working along with Smriti, and I think that in regulations, I mean, if I'm not talking about system safety or safety assessments, then I'm talking about in accordance with the regulations, aren't I? So it's and everyone falls asleep.
And then I guess, Smriti, that would be interesting to touch on from what you said. So obviously, I know that you're really enjoying your role at Atkins, but you, from what it sounds like, it felt like you potentially didn't have the flexibility to continue on your current role. Are there things that could have been put in place that would have helped you and could potentially help people in future?
Did you mean my previous role?
Yes.
Yeah. So I believe so. I guess whilst you know, I learned that I was sort of going to be mother soon. I guess you know, some of those conversation, you know, what that future looks like, and some of those supporting mechanism, maybe, you know, what we're going to do about it after 6 months time. And I think those sort of conversation would have helped me to understand that, okay, what my future looks like, and, you know, perhaps given me that insight to, okay, what should I do next, or, you know, make me feel in a better position that in sort of making decision what I would do next, really. So definitely, but because that support mechanism wasn't there, and I sort of left for myself to decide, really, and that's where, you know, I had to pause in my career, sort of understand, okay, what's next, really. I mean, I've got like now dual duties, really. I really enjoy what I do, but I've also got family commitment. But how do I take them, you know, together? And I think, you know, there should be some support, I guess, in place, you know, for me to then sort of make that decision, I guess. Yeah. But that would help if the support was there.
I feel like from my experience, the reason I stayed, because I had a great team, because I had someone like Smriti, I had Dawn, I had Leah, which they've given me a different perspective. Yes, I did have a bad experience in the past, but working for Atkins, like Smriti offered me opportunities. She showed me a different pathway. She showed me a different light on how the industry is. And that's the reason I stayed. That's the reason I didn't drop out, because I had a great team, and I have a great team. And I feel like that's important when you have like a good support team where they want you to be the best. They'll give you all the support, all the guidelines, everything that you need. That's how you keep people, when they know that you're behind them. And like when you're supporting them throughout.
Just to add on to what Kathy said before, you know, when you said, like, you know, somebody has learned in a difficult way, doesn't mean that everybody has to learn in that way. I think, you know, we learn from that, but also help how streamline, you know, that path to maybe coming generation, so that everybody is more attracted to, you know, do this, and we retain like more women. But if we start making life difficult for them, we're not helping at all, really. So I think there's a part that every individual would play as well. And I think that was one point what I mentioned before, you know, that individual role is ourselves that we play within our team, and, you know, some of those layers in the hierarchy as well.
I think there have been attitudes that say that if you're joining an organization, or you're joining an industry or a sector where you as an individual are underrepresented, you must make an effort to fit in. And I learned by doing it wrong that trying to be somebody I'm not meant that I wasn't bringing my best self. And my team deserved me at my best. Be that as a leader or as a colleague, as a follower, my team deserves me at my best. And I can't do that if I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not. So I can't try to fit in to what is expected of me, or what the industry image of what an engineer is or what the image of an officer in the Royal Air Force is, because then I am letting down the people who are the most important thing about what I do. When we evolve to the point where we can acknowledge that we don't all have to look the same, behave the same, solve problems the same, because if we all solve problems the same way, we will never progress. Engineers are here to make the world a better place and solve problems.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we can't all think the same way. We must come from different backgrounds. We must have diversity of thought, which comes from diversity of experience. Trying to fit in, because that's what you think your organization or your industry needs of you, is anathema to that. But that's cultural change. That's not something that we see in a couple of years or in a couple of weeks. It's generational change. But we can all do a little bit. We can all do a couple of % here and there to smooth the way for those that follow.
I really couldn't agree more on all of that. And part of me wants to end there because it's such a good point. But
there are other questions.
No. Well, you know, we're nearing the end of time. So I thought what I would do is open up to the audience, see if there are any questions there, as well as much as I have many that I would love to ask you all. Oh, got a few. I don't know where the microphone lives.
I think Tim has threatened to ask me about A400M availability, and I'm not answering that.
A difficult question. No, I'm going to ask. So in the US, there's been a rollback on diversity programs and companies kind of scrubbing their websites, NASA, some of the big corporates. Have you noticed it over here yet? And is that something we should be worried about in terms of, you know, you're a company or organization, you're working with America or you're doing work in America, and they're now checking well, what diversity programs is going on at this company? Have they got a women in aviation group, et cetera, and it having to be scrubbed, hidden, whatever?
I think the industry is going to have a real challenge to face there if the US government is going to not take contracts with organizations who have diversity inclusion programs. I think we actually see some of that hitting us now and in Europe. All right, I have an opinion here, all right? Recently, universities have had to change the way that they accept students from Europe because they can't bring their families with them because student visas have changed. So I had the great fortune to spend a year of my career at Cranfield University on a CAS fellowship, and there are far fewer applicants from Europe coming to Cranfield because of that change. That means that we're losing that diversity of thought. We're not getting the best people that we could have at one of the leading institutions that's looking at aviation safety. And so we are missing out on some of the opportunities that they would bring with them. Hopefully, the US will learn that before we go below our safety barriers. Hopefully, they will learn quite quickly that they need to recruit the best people and remove barriers to having those people come in and challenge them and ask questions and bring the ideas with them that don't exist if you don't level the playing field. And hopefully that lesson arrives before the next thing. I'm not going to quote previous examples because I don't want to jinx it. I hope that we see positive change before we see catastrophe.
Thank you. Sammy Evans, former Cranfield University. One of the things I wanted to ask all the ladies who pointed out the difficulty of being a female in a predominantly male trade is you must have known during World War II, just about all of the production lines in UK, America, even Japan, everything from shipbuilding, aircraft, everything was female, even the transport. So I'm kind of surprised because I had worked with female colleagues and female students and female lecturers. Even the female lecturers used to come and ask me how was a lecture or anything, but I never saw any prejudice that you talk about now, which is a bit surprising. And I'm kind of surprised. Is that because it's in the engineering workshop level? What is it that you think that is so much limitation being a female? Because I've never personally seen that, and I did actually ask many people, have you felt that, have you seen that? But they hadn't. And I'm just wondering, how come you all have something to say about that?
Could be because of the background that we are in, I think. Could be because of the background that we are in, especially coming from the, aviation maintenance and more and more into that sort of aerospace community. Again, I studied my master's in Cranfield University, and talking about that again, gender imbalance side of thing. I was the only female in that class of 8 or 9 student, and I often felt that gender imbalance side at every level within that aerospace, be it MRO field where I first started my experience, or be it the college experience that I gained here in the UK, or be it within the company that I've worked with. I think it's the background, that aerospace engineering background. I think, from my opinion anyway, that's purely from the experience. But I'll let.
I'd like to add to that, going from, so if you remember, I said that I took metalwork at school. It wasn't so many years prior to me being in high school that those sort of classes weren't available for females, and you had to do typewriting and you had to do home economics, and those sort of typical female subjects. I had spoken to like my grandparents and my parents, and they would tell me that, oh, you did metalwork. Oh, you didn't do metalwork when I was a girl. So I think some of those opportunities in the late 70s, early 80s, so increasing them for women for females to take on board those subjects. I think that has increased as well, and brought encouragement for women to be able to do engineering topics.
We've had a couple of people, I'm sorry to leap in, talk about their entry into the aviation sector being through the Air Cadet organisation. And I probably don't need to tell the audience here how wonderful that organisation is. But when my father joined, and he's probably listening online, there was a change that allowed female cadets to join the Air Cadet organisation. And in the guidebook, there was a list of suitable activities for them that included sewing uniforms and making tea. I'm just going to do some very quick maths in my head. I think that was in the mid-70s, which is not actually that long ago. So it is nice to know that we have had some progress. I think.
Yeah. And also to add to that, a lot of people are afraid to speak out about it. They don't want the stereotypical woman complaining type of stereotype on them. That's why a lot of females, they don't speak about their experience. They just, like, from my experience also, like, I never used to tell my colleagues this went on, that went on, because I didn't want to be looked at as, oh, she's just complaining, oh, this and that. But you just don't want that stigma on you. That's why I used to be like, oh, it's fine. But really it wasn't. But now I'm like at a position where I do speak about it. So someone like when Leah joined, she won't have that issue.
Yeah.
Like someone like that I had experience with won't treat her the way I was treated. And that's what Smriti has done. That's what Catherine has done. That's what Dawn has done for someone like myself to be in this position where I don't have what they had. They had it worse. Yeah. I had it easy probably. But that's why we have this panel today, to like show that things have improved. It's not perfect, but we're getting there.
Yeah, and even I said, look, it has improved, and I've had it so easy compared to you guys. So easy. But even when I got this job, my male colleagues, like on my course, said, oh, well done on getting the job. How does it feel to be a diversity hire? They said that to me. They said it as a joke, but the joke has basis. That's why they thought it was funny.
But it's not, and that joke hasn't changed.
No.
Because when I was finishing my my engineering masters at Loughborough, my male colleague said, "Oh, it will be really easy for you to get a job because loads of companies want to be hiring more female engineers." And I said, "Well, no, it's going to be very easy for me to get a job because I got first."
Yeah.
You know.
That's a very good point. And thank you very much for sharing that and for the questions. I'm afraid we're about at time. And I think, you know, we have unfortunately highlighted some of, you know, the awkward situations that people do face in everyday life. But hopefully we've also seen a path where things are improving significantly. And I think a lot of suggestions around how we can retain people in the industry, for instance, Alter and the mentoring seems to have helped, you know, tons of people and all of you individually as well. I'll just quickly swing through all and say, do you have any like very last thoughts on sort of to round things up? Starting with you. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I should have said.
I think no matter what the journey is and no matter how difficult it is, I think if you're driven by passion, you know, you will make it happen. So I think, you know, regardless of what's happening around you, really shouldn't matter, although it would. But, you know, since things are getting better, and I believe, you know, it will take some time to be there, but the most important part is that what you're passionate about, and it should never die. I think that's what it is.
I guess in a environment where what we can hope for every day is 1% change, it's worth remembering that it's a lot easier to advocate for somebody else than it is to advocate for yourself. A lot of us have talked about scenarios where we weren't in a position to speak up about something that wasn't quite right. And so I ask everyone, if they see it happening, to remember that it's easier to stand up for someone else and stand up for yourself and call it out when you see it.
I agree with Catherine. You stole my words. I would say that, you know what, it's if you could advocate and promote more females. If you know anyone that might be interested in this industry, promote it, make them comfortable enough to like join the engineering industry. And I would say it's not all bad. Trust me, there are like great people, as you can see in this panel, where they are the reason why we're here today. And I feel like we've made really big changes. They've made big changes. And whoever's going to be joining soon, and hope it will be much easier and smoother for them. So, yeah, thank you.
I think I just want to say, I think we all collectively need to do our part to promote engineering as a whole, not just to women, but to everyone. I am shocked when people don't know what engineering is, and they have this conception of like the guy who comes to fix the boiler and stuff, and very important job, but that's not all that engineering is. And I love engineering. I think it's fascinating. I think I can say obsessed with it. And I think we need to all do our part to shout from the rooftops and be like, hey guys, engineering, have you ever considered it? It's amazing. Look at all the stuff you can do. Look at all the places you can go. Look at all the change you can create. And yeah, I think we should all be little engineering promoters.
I don't know if you've noticed with TV adverts, Shell is a typical, it all started with an engineer, and what do you see first? It's a female. So who knows, maybe it's going to be an engineer and people will instantly think it's a female. And that's how much times would have changed. That there will no longer be the belief that, oh, my boiler engineer is turning up. I wonder what time he's going to turn up. And it's not. It's a female. And why shouldn't it be? Why shouldn't it?
Thank you so much, everyone, and really appreciate the time and the lecture as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I was expecting you guys to go off stage. Sorry. My goodness. Right. So I think there were probably quite a few more questions that people wanted to ask the panel. I'm sorry that we've got a bit short on time. So if you did have anything to ask anyone, please use the networking and drinks break that we've got next to chat to our panelists and our lecturer today. And we've mixed it up a little bit today with the Amy Johnson lecture. It's as a named lecture, it's a technical lecture, but we introduced the panel, actually it was Smritri's idea, to bring a bit of diversity, I suppose, in the way that we run the event, and to give us an opportunity to talk a little bit about being a female in the industry. As we said at the start, our committee is here to give women in the industry a voice and a platform. And I hope that we've done that today and shared that successfully. And I hope that you've enjoyed the format. I welcome any feedback. And it's been, I don't know, I have mixed feelings actually, because I think it's uplifting, and I think, you know, we all love our roles in aerospace, be that as engineers, and we've got a lot of engineers up here, but in other parts of the industry, it's challenging and it's fulfilling, and there's a lot of passion here. I have to say it's tinged with a little bit of disappointment that, you know, when I went to university 20-something years ago, my course, it was about 10% female, I think. In my first job, there were, out of 100 technicians that I was leading, there were 2. And I don't feel like that dial has moved that much. But again, it's why it's really important that we run these events and keep talking. And it was really nice to hear that Leo was inspired an event similar to this and now up here on the stage. And I suppose what I didn't say at the start in my opening remarks, because I wanted to leave plenty of time for these fabulous ladies to take to the stage, was that I've been quite excited about this one, because the majority of my career I've spent in maintenance and managing continuing and type airworthiness. And I recently moved into R&D in industry, and I think that maintenance and airworthiness management is a part of our industry that perhaps sits a little bit under the radar. And since I've changed into a different part of the industry, more focused on design and manufacture, I've even had people say, oh, you know, MRO, that's the boring bit. And I was like, are you serious? They were like, it's so unpredictable, it's so challenging, it's what keeps our aircraft in the sky, it's what keeps our aircrew safe. So I'm really grateful, Smriti, that we got you here to really highlight this sector. So thank you. I think that was fantastic. And I really enjoyed seeing your pictures of Falkland Islands, because despite my 20-odd year career in the Air Force, that was one place I never got to go. So which I remain a little envious of that. I also love the parallels between Smritri's journey and Amy's as an inspirational trailblazer. I think your story is incredible, and thank you so much for coming up here and sharing it with us. And looking to the future, you know, finding myself now in R&D and innovation, and thinking how that world will collide with MRO, with all of the innovations that we have with digital technology, digital twinning, AI, HPC, and thinking about my own career journey that started off working on Nimrods, that were quite, you know, probably a historical aircraft actually, and, you know, at some point working on A400, which was probably one of the more modern aircraft, a sort of flying computer, and thinking about how that journey will continue, and how that will change the way that MRO and airworthiness is managed, and hopefully provide plenty of opportunities. And then onto the panel. I mean, Verity, thank you, expert moderation. And I know you were on a panel yourself this afternoon as well, and part of our committee meeting. So thank you for steering the team. And yeah, such a diverse range of experiences. But also great to see the impact that Smritri's had in her team at Atkins, and Dawn, with your vast experience as well, being able to lift up the women that are coming through. I think, you know, Kathy, your point of, as women in the industry, it's really important that we are allies as well as the males in the industry, and that we lift each other up and pull each other through. And hopefully the things that the committee, the WASC, are doing in the Royal Aeronautical Society is playing a small part in that. I think we heard over and over again as well about ALTA and the power of mentoring. And I'm a part of ALTA. I'm a mentor and a mentee. So again, a bit like Smritri, I can absolutely attest to the, you know, the positivity that platform can bring, and the opportunity that it can bring. Which brings me round, if you'll indulge me a little bit, although I'm missing something that I thought was down here. I just wanted to make a special mention we heard her called out by Smriti, I think, in her talk. So Yvonne Elsgori is here in the audience today. And I think when I opened up, I said the WASC was established in 2009, and Yvonne was one of those founding members. She's continued to volunteer with the Society, both in the Women in Aviation and Aerospace Committee and with the Education and Skills Council. And as we've heard tonight, has had a significant impact through her mentorship. When I took over as chair of the committee about 3 years ago, I was told that Yvonne would be my rock. And she absolutely was. And so I don't think we can underestimate the impact that she's had on so many individuals and how that will have, spread out across women in the industry. Now, Yvonne's stepping away from our committee, hopefully not forever, but for a little while. But I did want to take the opportunity, seeing as she's here tonight, to embarrass her, but also to to thank her for everything that she's done. And we've got a little token for you, Yvonne. I think Vivaldo has at the back there. So if we could all just give Yvonne a round of applause. Plus, I'll say thanks again to our sponsors, Rolls-Royce. They've actively sponsored quite a few of our events, so we're really grateful to them. And of course, back to the panelists, and of course, Smriti for being such a fantastic lecturer tonight. And for all of you being here in the room and online, we're super grateful for your support. I'm very sorry that we've overrun by a few minutes, so I will leave it there and let everyone here get over to the drinks reception. Hope everybody online has enjoyed it as well. And hopefully I'll get to catch up with a few of you over drinks in a few minutes' time. So thank you all and have a good evening.